Rushed out with my kids, my phone buzzed, go now. Hidden truth revealed changed everything. Sarah bolted out the front door, her heart racing. The familiar sound of Tommy and Lily laughing filled the air, mixing with the scent of freshly cut grass wafting from neighbors' lawns. It was just another chaotic afternoon in Maplewood, where life seemed to move at a pace that left little room for pause. But this message, cryptic, urgent, clenched her stomach into tight knots of anxiety. What hidden truth? What had changed? Mom. Can we have pancakes for dinner? Lily called, her innocent glee slicing through Sarah's worried thoughts. Of course, sweetheart, Sarah replied, forcing a smile. She hurriedly hugged Tommy, shoving her phone into her pocket and trying to shake the unease threatening to burst through her like fireworks. They deserved pancakes, they deserved joy, and she refused to let a message pull their spirits down. As Sarah pulled away from her children, she felt both love and responsibility weighing heavily on her. Every day she juggled 2 jobs, racing from her shift as a cashier to evening cleaning jobs, all for Tommy and Lily. She wanted to build a better life, a foundation of hope, but the reality often felt like trying to outrun a storm. As she approached the community center, her thoughts lingered on Mr. Thompson. He had always been a beacon of hope for Maplewood, painting visions of fairness for everyone. But with whispers of favoritism and corruption creeping into conversations, her trust felt shattered. Each day brought fresh challenges, like the new employee at the store who seemed to squeeze her out, armed with connections that felt less than genuine. The school play, the spirit of Maplewood, loomed ahead that evening, a bittersweet reminder of the unity her community once showcased. As she watched Tommy and Lily twirl and rehearse, their innocent excitement radiating through her, the world around her seemed to blur. The laughter that filled that auditorium felt like a cover for something dark lurking beneath. A part of her wanted to scream out against the injustices swirling in the depths of their town. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night of the play arrived, Sarah's heart pounded against her chest. Every parent settled into their seats while the stage lit up, casting shadows on their eager faces. It was time to confront Mr. Thompson, confront the betrayal of trust that ignited her courage like a match to dry kindling. With shaky hands and a voice louder than she thought possible, she stood up. Her chest tightened as she faced the crowd and Mr. Thompson, calling out the truths she had unearthed. What happens when merit gives way to privilege? When those meant to guide us instead lead us astray? Gasps and murmurs enveloped the crowd. Would they stand by her, or choose to remain tethered to a false idol? The world fell silent, her words hanging in the air with a vibrancy that sparked both fear and hope. As the play began, Sarah stood there, her heart heavy with expectancy. Would they rally behind her? Or would the fears of the past hold them hostage? The uncertainty consumed her, leaving her breathless. Could one voice truly channel change in a town so steeped in tradition? The truth loomed, waiting, just beyond the horizon. The lights dimmed, and the play began. Children darting across the stage, adorned in bright costumes, their voices blending in a melody that should have filled Sarah with warmth. Instead, she felt like a spectator in her own life, stuck in this moment while the larger world loomed ominously around her. Each note hitched her heart higher into her throat, hampering her breath. Mom. Look. I'm a tree. Tommy shouted, his cheeks flushed with excitement as he waved his arms like branches. Lily, dressed as a joyful bird, spun in delight, oblivious to the tension surrounding her mother. That innocent joy cut through Sarah like a knife, setting her resolve alight. She couldn't let their laughter be the backdrop to her fears. They needed safety, security, a community they could be proud of. But how could she build that when doubts felt like an anchor weighing her down? A ripple ran through the audience as Mr. Thompson approached the stage. Sarah's pulse quickened. There he was, the embodiment of everything she thought she knew: integrity, reliability, hope. Yet, as the whispers of corruption danced in her mind, she couldn't reconcile that image with the man before her. With each passing scene, she understood that the reality of their town was something she couldn't ignore any longer. The thought of remaining silent gnawed at her. Those around her were starting to murmur, sharing uneasy glances. Some spoke to one another in hushed voices, a few casting sidelong looks at her. Where was her support? Had they all turned a blind eye, content to revel in the illusion of normalcy? The play rolled on, each act a reflection of their town, a community of heroes, but also a place where shadows danced at the edges. Would any of them dare to face the truth as she had? As the children exited the stage, bows taken, the crowd clapped with a mix of enthusiasm and tension. Sarah stood her ground, bolstered by her children's unrelenting joy. Finally, she decided it was now or never. As the applause roared, she stood again, this time with more determination. "Please," she called out, her voice echoing through the auditorium, seizing the moment like a lifeline. "We have to talk about what's happening in our town. About what we are allowing to happen." Gasps rippled across rows of parents. Mr. Thompson's expression hardened. Suddenly the energy shifted, a tidal wave of tension sweeping through the air. "Sit down, Sarah," someone murmured from the back, a voice robotic, trying to pull the curtain back on the truth that burned in her chest. "Why should we?" she pressed, heart racing, awareness crackling between her and the audience. "Are we really going to let fear dictate our lives? Our children deserve better than an etched-in-stone version of Maplewood, blind to its flaws." Silence, heavy and stifling, settled like fog in the air. It was palpable, a moment suspended in time, a breath caught. Suddenly, someone in the front row gripped the arm of their seat, eyes wide with recognition, speaking out, "She's right, we can't turn our heads away." The murmur of agreement began to spread like wildfire. Hope flickered in the air, tinged with apprehension but potent, strong enough to shatter the glass of complacency. As Sarah looked around, she felt her courage swell. This was the moment she needed. Would they follow her? Would they rise up as a community, unified finally against the shadows? But just then, a loud crash-off on the periphery of the theater broke through the charged atmosphere. It felt like a seismic shift in urgency hanging above them like a storm cloud. Sarah's heart raced again, this time with a new form of fear. What had happened? "Stay here," she whispered to Tommy and Lily, her maternal instinct kicking in. There was no turning back now. Whatever the hidden truth was, it demanded to be uncovered. What was lurking just outside the light of the stage? As she prepared to step forward, a feeling of dread overwhelmed her. The truth was waiting, and it might cost everything she held dear. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the auditorium, drowning out the applause. For a heart-stopping moment, the audience froze, eyes locked on Sarah as if she held the key to the chaos outside. She could feel every set of eyes burning into her, all waiting for the next move. "Stay right here," she repeated to Tommy and Lily, her voice steadier than she felt. They nodded, wide-eyed yet still clutching their props, her brave little tree and bright little bird, unaware of the storm approaching. Sarah squeezed through the rows, heart thumping like a drum, propelled by fear but fueled by purpose. Each step toward the exit felt monumental, her breath hitched in her chest. What was waiting for them beyond the bright stage lights? As she reached the door, a warm rush of air swept in, carrying whispers of panic. The lobby was a tableau of confused parents, some huddled together, others darting toward exits, and a few clutching cell phones, eyes glued to screens like they held the answers. "Mom!" Tommy shouted, his voice jarring her back. She turned to find him stuck, fear wresting the enthusiasm from his earlier joy. "Don't leave us." She rushed back to scoop him up, telling herself it was okay to feel afraid, but she needed to keep him safe. "We're not going anywhere without you, buddy," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "Did you see that?" It looked like Lily's voice trailed off as she spotted a group of parents gathered around, murmuring urgently, their bodies tight with tension. Sarah followed her gaze, fear creeping into her bones as she approached. "What's happened?" she asked, her voice laced with urgency. "It looks like there's a protest happening outside, behind the theater." The words dripped with disbelief, like the very notion of dissent was alien in their town. Sarah's heart sank. Was this an attempt to take a stand or simply chaos? The thought of more hidden truths flared in her mind like an old torch rekindled. They had just begun to peel back the layers, and now something was building on their doorstep. People were moving, voices rising. She glimpsed Mr. Thompson standing at the center, flanked by a group of determined parents, faces taut with anger and resolve. He was shouting, but Sarah couldn't catch the words above the murmurs of the crowd. In that moment, she felt it, a push inside her, a pull toward action. Standing by wasn't an option anymore. "Let us go see what's happening," she urged, even as her feet stayed glued to the floor. Tommy frowned. "But what if we need to see for ourselves?" Her voice felt different now, sharper, more focused. Health and safety mattered. What they were building in Maplewood needed to be nurtured. With a gentle tug, she led her children outside, excitement and fear dancing in her chest like the flickering lights of the stage. The sun was setting, casting long shadows, but the protest was growing. As they stepped out into the fray, Sarah's phone buzzed violently in her pocket, making her jump. She pulled it out and glanced at the screen, a message from her friend Mia, coded urgency radiating through the screen. "Go now. Hidden truth revealed, changed everything." What truth? What change? Her heart raced, uncertainty crashing against her resolve. She couldn't let fear overpower her anymore. No more watching from the sidelines. Whatever this was, it was crucial. "Come on. Let us go," she shouted, pushing forward as the shouts grew louder. She felt her family at her side, their energy buoying her with each step. But as they moved closer to the commotion, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that everything she thought she knew was on the verge of collapse. What had Mia uncovered? And would they have the courage to face it together? Sarah pushed through the throng of bodies, her breath quickening as she felt the swell of emotions around her. The growing hubbub of voices, filled with agitation and concern, felt like a storm brewing just off the coast. With Tommy nestled in her arms and Lily trailing close behind, she immersed herself deeper into the chaos, instincts sharpening. Their small world was spiraling out of control, and she felt pressed to protect them from whatever was threatening their peace. "Look, Mom." Tommy pointed toward a cluster of signs being waved above the crowd. Some read "Enough is enough," while others screamed "We deserve better." Each message pulsed with urgency, echoing the pulse in Sarah's heart. She wanted to understand, to grasp the why behind the tumult, but everything felt muddled. They edged closer to the front, where Mr. Thompson's strong voice cut through the noise. "This isn't just about our kids. It's about our community." The parents around him nodded, their expressions a mix of anger, fear, and determination. "What are they protesting?" Lily whispered, her small voice shaky yet curious. Sarah glanced down at her daughter, recognizing the innocence clashing with the weight of the moment. Could she really explain it all? "Some people feel like they're not being heard," Sarah began gently. "They're fighting for what they think is right for us, for our kids." Suddenly, the crowd surged, voices rising in unison, a wave of emotions crashing against them. Sarah instinctively tightened her grip on Tommy, pulling him closer as she felt the pressure from behind. Lily clutched her mother's leg, wide-eyed but standing firm, echoing the resolve that seemed to ripple through the crowd. As she scanned the faces, she saw a mix of concern and hope, a distinct reminder that they were all in this together, a community grappling with hidden truths. A dust cloud kicked up by hurried feet swirled around, and for a moment, it felt like their small-town illusion was crumbling under the weight of reality. Then, her phone buzzed again, louder this time. She glanced down. Another message from Mia. "They're about to drop a major bombshell. Don't miss it." Anxiety twisted in Sarah's gut. What if whatever was revealed deeply impacted them? What if it changed everything they believed in? Mr. Thompson raised his voice higher, full of passion. "This is our chance to speak up. We demand transparency and accountability." As he continued, something began tugging at Sarah's heart, a feeling she couldn't quite articulate. This was more than just a protest, it felt like a gathering of people who were ready to wield their voices. Are we going to stand here? She whispered to Lily and Tommy, the urgency rising within her. Or do we join them and be part of this? Tommy hesitated, glancing toward the signs and the growing buzz of action. Can we really make things change? He asked, voice small but earnest, his childlike hope shining through. Yes, Sarah replied firmly, her resolve solidifying like iron. If we all do this together, we can. Feeling newfound courage, she squeezed Tommy's hand and reached for Lily's, forming a small united front. As they stepped forward into the fray, Sarah felt the energy of the crowd pushing them onward, but amidst their resolve, a shudder of worry gripped her. What was this change they were seeking? And what would it mean for their family, their town, their lives? The moment was electric, hope and fear intertwining tightly as they joined the demonstration, hearts racing steeped in uncertainty, facing a truth long shrouded in silence. Would they find the courage within themselves to face the hidden layers of their lives? Or would they discover that some truths are harder to swallow than they could ever imagine? As Sarah pressed deeper into the mass of bodies, she could feel the tide of voices rising to a fever pitch. Each shout pulsed in her chest like a drum, and she caught glimpses of determined faces, eyes flashing with a mix of desperation and conviction. Mom, what does transparency mean? Lily asked, her voice barely rising above the noise. It means being honest, Sarah replied, a knot forming in her stomach. It means they want to know the truth about what is happening. Tommy's grip tightened. What truth? Sarah opened her mouth, but the words hung in the air. She looked around, taking in the animated crowd. What they were fighting for was only starting to unravel in her mind. Her heart raced, not just from the buzz of the protest, but from a deep-seated worry gnawing at her. Could she shield her children from whatever shocking revelation was coming next? Stay close, she instructed firmly, her protective nature kicking into overdrive as they pushed further toward Mr. Thompson. Look. Tommy pointed again as they reached the front. A man on stage stood poised before a microphone, his brow furrowed with an intensity that rippled through the masses. Mr. Thompson's voice thundered above them. We deserve to know what is happening in our schools. We must demand our leaders respect our voices. Heads nodded in solidarity amongst the crowd. The atmosphere was thick with hope, mingling with the dread that something historic was about to occur. Sarah felt it, too, the anticipation was like electricity in the air. Suddenly, the man on stage turned serious, his voice dropping lower. At this very moment, we have obtained documents that reveal serious mismanagement in our district, secrets that have been kept from us. A collective gasp echoed, a wave of shock rolling through the crowd. The murmurs that followed buzzed with confusion and anger. Was this the bombshell Mia had mentioned? What kind of secrets? She whispered to herself, heart hammering. Tommy's hold on her grew more insistent. Mom, what are they hiding? I'm not sure, sweetie, she admitted, eyes glued to the leader's face, searching for clues. But it seems important. Things are changing, aren't they? He offered, glancing up at her. His innocence made Sarah's heart swell. She thought of the world she wanted to create for them, one free from fear and judgment. But the truth was daunting. As the speaker continued, snippets dribbled into clarity, reports of budget cuts, resource allocation skewed to favor certain groups, the safety of their schools suddenly questionable. The air grew thick with anger, but also discernibly, a sense of unity began to take hold. It was in their collective disbelief, their shared resolve to dig deeper together amidst the unfolding drama. Sarah felt urgency course through her veins. The ripple effect of this revelation would extend far beyond the protest, deep into the heart of her family. But how could she prepare them for a truth that held such weight? Let us raise our voices together, Mr. Thompson urged, igniting a chant that surged through the crowd. As the relentless chorus filled the air, Sarah's mind raced with thoughts of the coming days. Could she protect her kids from the harsh realities ahead? How would they process the potential upheaval of their lives? But then she thought of the faces around her, strangers transformed into allies, a community unified. There was hope in that. Maybe together they could navigate the waters ahead. Are you ready? She asked, looking down at Tommy and Lily. Their eyes shone bright, reflecting the raw energy surrounding them. They had come this far, and Sarah felt an undeniable pull within herself, a call to not only protect but also to engage. Yeah. They cheered in unison, echoing the sentiment of the crowd. Then, Sarah's phone buzzed urgently once more. She glanced down. Get ready. The documents are being revealed. The truth will set us free. A shiver of courage flickered within her. As the crowd roared with newfound purpose, she squeezed her children's hands tightly, ready to follow the wave of determination. How deep did the truths run, and were they ready to face them together? The words on Sarah's screen sent a jolt through her. Go now. What did that mean? The air around them crackled with an urgency that felt palpable. She glanced at Tommy and Lily, their faces filled with a mix of excitement and worry. This was a moment of awakening, but it carried a weight she couldn't ignore. Mom. Tommy tugged at her sleeve, his eyes wide. What's happening? She shook her head slightly, unable to voice her own uncertainties. I don't know. But we need to focus. Stick together. Mr. Thompson stepped back from the microphone, a wave of murmuring excitement rippling through the crowd. People leaned closer, pressing in to catch every word, desperate not to miss anything. This wasn't just any protest. It was a moment, the pulse of a community striving for answers. Mom, look. Lily pointed towards the side of the stage where a team of volunteers was unfurling large sheets of paper. What are those? Sarah squinted, realizing that the documents everyone had been whispering about were finally being revealed. The tension of the crowd shifted, excitement blossoming into something more intense, almost frantic. One of the volunteers began reading aloud, and as the words penetrated the noise, Sarah could feel her heart start to race. It was a list of budget allocations. It detailed ridiculous overspending on lavish new facilities while essential resources, like textbooks and support staff, were being slashed. Each revelation felt like another blow to the gut. Tommy squeezed her hand harder, leaning into her. Mom, that's not right. His voice broke through her fog of disbelief. No, she murmured, her mind racing. A brave spirit engulfed her, igniting the need to fight against the injustice laid bare before them. This wasn't just about schools, it was about their future, their safety. And here they were, witnessing the unfolding of something so much bigger than themselves. As the documents continued to reveal mismanagement, the chants transformed. We deserve transparency. Echoed through the mass, each syllable weighing heavy with emotion. A realization sank in. This unity was their strength. Mom? Lily's voice broke through her thoughts again. What are we going to do? Sarah looked at her daughter's earnest face. She realized she could not just stand back, waiting for change to happen. This was the moment to step forward. We're going to speak up. Together. We will help make sure our voices are heard. Tommy nodded, a spark of determination lighting his features. Just then, a hand shot up in the crowd, waving a large placard emblazoned with the words "United We Stand." It inspired cheers. The power of community swept through Sarah, pushing her anxiety to the side. If they could band together, they could actually change things. As Mr. Thompson stepped back to the mic, Sarah's phone buzzed again. It was another message. Don't miss the town hall meeting tomorrow night. They need to hear our stories. The adrenaline coursed through her as she caught her children's eyes, bursting with resolve. We're going, aren't we? Yeah. They shouted with newfound excitement, buoyed by the urgency in her voice. They felt it, too, the calling for change, the rallying cry of their own small world. But as the protest began to wind down, Sarah realized that the hard part was just beginning. She felt the familiar knot in her stomach return. What would they face in that town hall? Were they truly prepared for what was to come, and would they find the courage to reveal not just the facts, but also the emotions behind them? The questions loomed, heavy on her heart, as they stepped away from the gathering, leaving the echoes of their shared purpose behind. How far would they go for transparency, and what truths were they willing to confront together? The next morning crept in slowly, yet the weight of the previous night clung to Sarah like a heavy fog. The sun peered through the blinds, casting streaks of light that danced across the kitchen table, but it did little to brighten her spirit. She felt restless, her mind racing with worries and hopes. "Mom, are we really going to that meeting tonight?" Tommy's innocent question cut through her thoughts like a knife. He was sitting at the table, shuffling his cereal around, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "Of course we are," she responded, trying to sound confident. "We have to let them know how we feel." "Will it be scary?" Lily chimed in, her small hands wrapping around her bowl. The way she looked up at Sarah, curious yet apprehensive, spoke volumes. Sarah took a deep breath. "It might be. But we're in this together, right? If we share our stories, we can make a real difference." She watched as her children exchanged glances. There was a shared resolve there, but also a flicker of doubt. And deep inside, Sarah felt it too, that twisting in her stomach, telling her this was just the beginning. All day, the rising anticipation hung heavily in the air. The family went about their activities, but the looming town hall meeting remained at the forefront of their minds. Every buzz of Sarah's phone drew her attention, reminding her how urgent their fight had become. By evening, the tension reached a boiling point. As they arrived at the town hall, a crowd gathered, faces painted with determination and apprehension alike. Sarah stepped out of the car, feeling the rush of adrenaline surge through her body. "Look at all these people, Mom!" Tommy exclaimed, wide-eyed at the mass of community, their signs held high, some reading "Our Children Matter" and "Fund Our Future." The warmth of community wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, reminding her that they weren't alone. They walked towards the entrance, the rhythmic sound of footsteps echoing in the large hall filled her with both fear and excitement. Sarah's heart raced, the stakes had never felt higher. She glanced at her kids, and she could see the same emotions reflected in their eyes. Inside, the room buzzed with chatter, a mix of hopeful anticipation and anxiety as residents greeted one another. Sarah felt overwhelmed as faces blurred together, but she cupped her hands over her ears. A moment of silence before the storm. Mr. Thompson stood at the front, preparing notes, his aura commanding attention. As he opened the meeting, Sarah felt the familiar note return. Everyone's voices quieted down, but her own heartbeat was deafening in her ears. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, and it felt like the world had shifted beneath her feet. "Tonight, we listen, and we share our stories," he began, and Sarah felt every word as if it was her own. Then he motioned for those who wished to speak to line up. She watched as people stepped forward, each individual sharing their struggles and experiences, their voices trembling but strong. Tommy and Lily were still beside her, eyes wide as they took in the gravity of what was happening. Sarah took a deep breath, her time was approaching. A pang of doubt hit her. Would she be able to share her truth? Suddenly, something ignited within her. The words of the previous night echoed in her mind. They were here for a purpose. Their voices mattered, and it was time to rise above the doubt. Before she realized it, she was stepping forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The mic loomed large ahead as the crowd turned to look at her. Would they listen? Did she have it in her to speak her truth? The questions hung in the air around her, but one thing was certain. Tonight was going to change everything. As she opened her mouth, a surprising confidence took hold. "I'm here to fight for my children, and I know I'm not alone." And with that, everything shifted. But would her words be enough to inspire others to do the same? Sarah's voice rang out clearly, reverberating in the hall. The weight of her words hung in the air, and for a moment, she could see the crowd holding its breath. The faces around her mirrored her emotions, some filled with hope, others with determination. Her declaration had become the spark she hoped it would be. A ripple of murmurs began to sweep across the room. People shifted in their seats, leaning closer, as if drawn to the courage in her voice. Sarah swallowed hard, pushing aside the fear that threatened to creep back in. This was her moment. She pressed on, fueled by adrenaline. "We are fighting for better schools, better funding, and safety for our children. This isn't just about policies, it's about their future." Each word seemed to resonate with the crowd, amplifying the urgency of their shared struggle. From the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Tommy and Lily, their expressions a mix of pride and encouragement. They were rooting for her, backing her silently even if they couldn't join in the chorus yet. Suddenly, a hand rose from the audience. It belonged to Mrs. Henderson, an elder woman known for her calm presence. "Speak for us, Sarah. We're with you." The room erupted into applause. The sound crashed over Sarah like a wave, flooding her with a sense of belonging. She took another deep breath, feeling the weight on her shoulders lighten just a bit. It was then that her gaze shifted around the room, absorbing the faces choked with emotion and ready to stand up for their beliefs. "Together, we can make them hear us. Together, we can fight back." She leaned into the microphone, her heart pounding like a drum. The words poured from her, each syllable a stepping stone towards change. More voices started to join in, echoing her sentiments. One by one, neighbors stepped up to share their stories, revealing the struggles and hopes they held for their families. "Thank you for standing up, Sarah," a voice shouted from the back. It was Brian, the dad from their neighborhood who played soccer with Tommy. His support ignited more applause, igniting a fire she hadn't realized was smoldering within all of them. As the momentum surged, Sarah could feel herself being pulled into a collective energy that felt electric. This wasn't just her story anymore, it was theirs too. Each heartfelt confession added fuel to the fire, and the atmosphere crackled with unity. But then, suddenly, the energy shifted. A familiar face pushed through the crowd. Mr. Richards, the school board member, his expression tight and defensive. The room grew quiet at his arrival, a sudden chill lingering in the air, turning the warmth they'd built into uncertainty. "Let us be realistic here," he said, his voice firm. "These meetings never lead to real change." Gasps filled the room, voices rising in protest. Sarah felt the energy wane, the resolve beginning to crack. But instead of faltering under the weight of his words, she felt a fire reignite within her. "That's not true," she shouted, her voice cutting through the market of disbelief. "Change is only impossible if we stop fighting for it." A swell of agreement rippled through the audience. They weren't going to let this moment slip away. As they shouted affirmations and lifted their signs high, Sarah sensed a revival of spirit. The tide was turning, and yet, as the meeting surged on, uncertainty whispered in her ear. Could they really take on someone like Mr. Richards? The implications of their fight loomed larger than she had anticipated, and she could feel the weight pressing down again. Are we strong enough for this? She wondered silently, as the intensity of the moment pulled her deeper into the struggle. The crowd began to rally again, but the question echoed within her heart. Would this be the moment she'd been waiting for, or the moment that crushed them all? The path ahead was no longer clear, but Sarah could feel the call to action rising. What would she do next? The crowd surged forward, the energy revitalized, but Sarah could still feel the uncertainty hanging in the air like a storm cloud. A heavy silence had enveloped the room after Mr. Richards's words, and she knew she needed to steer them back to hope. We've shared our tales. We've raised our voices," she shouted, trying to channel the passion she felt inside. "This is just the beginning. If we back down now, who will stand up for our kids tomorrow?" With each word, she saw faces begin to brighten again. Thoughts of the children giggling on the swings, running through hallways, and dreaming of their futures flooded her mind. She imagined Tommy's bright smile, the way Lily always believed the best in people. That mental image fueled her fire. "Mr. Richards may not think we can change things," Sarah cried, striving to fill the air with the strength of her conviction. "But change starts with us. We need to keep pushing until we break through this wall of apathy. Our kids can't afford for us to be silent." A ripple of cheer erupted, voices cheering in agreement. Sarah felt a connection with every person in the room, their hearts beating in rhythm with her own. She rallied the audience further, calling for volunteers, urging them to form teams, to gather signatures, to spread the word. Every hand that went up was an affirmation of their combined will. Then, as she looked across the room, she caught sight of Mrs. Henderson again. The woman's wise eyes were glistening with tears, but she was also nodding proudly. Something shifted in Sarah's chest at that moment. It was one thing to fight for change, but it was another to realize they were truly coming together as a community. This was more than just a meeting, it was a movement. Just then, Brian returned to the forefront of the crowd. "I'm willing to organize neighborhood meetings," he shouted. "Let us bring everyone together and make a plan." More hands shot up, people were standing, and there was a unity pulsing through the air. But amid the enthusiasm, Sarah caught Mr. Richards's eye. He stood there, unyielding, a tight expression that told her he wouldn't back down easily. That doubt crept back into Sarah's heart. His authority loomed over them. Despite their energy, how could this small group of parents conquer a school board member who had likely only responded to whispers of dissent with indifference over the years? Yet, the thought of Tommy's laughter reminded her that the battle was not just about her, it was for every child, including those too young to advocate for themselves. "We may be scared, but fear won't stop us," she said, her heart racing. "It's not about individual voices anymore, it's about every voice here being heard." Suddenly, a text buzzed in her pocket, the screen lighting up urgent and demanding. She fished her phone out, her heartbeat quickening. The message read, "Go now. Hidden truth revealed changed everything." Confusion washed over her. "Excuse me for a moment," she blurted, unsure how to balance this unexpected interruption. She stepped back from the microphone and brought the phone closer. What hidden truth? And why did it feel like the ground was shifting beneath her feet? Sarah's mind raced. Was this about her community efforts? Was it good news or a warning? She needed answers, and the clock was ticking. What could be revealed next? She caught the excited buzz of voices around her, but now fear simmered alongside hope. She took a deep breath, knowing she had to figure this out soon. In a fight for change, one new truth could be a game changer. What if this revealed something that could empower them even more? What if? Her heart raced. Was she ready for what awaited? As the room buzzed with anticipation, Sarah stood off to the side, her heart pounding like thunder. Everyone's voices blended into a hum of hope and determination, but her mind was racing, consumed by the urgency of the message on her phone. "Go now. Hidden truth revealed. Changed everything." It felt less like a warning and more like a challenge. She took a deep breath, eyes darting around the room, soaking in the faces of her community neighbors, friends, all there for one common purpose. Was this hidden truth some vital piece of information they needed? Something that could unite them further or unravel all that was being built? "Mom." Tommy's voice broke through her thoughts, tugging her back to the present. He was watching her with concern, and she realized she needed to quell the storm of uncertainty swirling in her mind. "Are we okay?" he asked, his small hands wringing together. "Yes, we're okay," she reassured him, squeezing his shoulder gently. "We're stronger than ever. Together, we can handle whatever comes." With a nod, she turned back toward the crowd. Mr. Thompson was preparing to speak again, his presence commanding the room, and Sarah's instincts kicked in. She didn't want to miss a moment. "All right, everyone," Mr. Thompson called out, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Your stories have already made an impact today. We're hearing each other, we're uniting, and it's only the beginning. But I want to make sure we dig deeper. I'm ready for us to confront the secrets that have been buried beneath our feet." A wave of murmurs rippled through the audience, but instead of fear, it felt more like a collective spark, anticipation igniting the air. Sarah's heart raced. She felt herself standing a little taller. "Mom, do you think he knows what's happening?" Lily whispered, curiosity shining in her eyes. "I think he might," Sarah replied, "and whatever it is, we'll face it together." Then, Mr. Thompson motioned toward the volunteers gathered on stage. "We have information that needs to be revealed regarding the mismanagement in our community budget, discrepancies, hidden proposals, things that have been kept from us for too long." The crowd erupted into a frenzy of chat, anxious energy lighting up the room. Sarah squeezed Tommy's hand, drawing from his unwavering faith. The unity crafted over the past days felt electric, and her phone buzzed again. Another urgent message from Mia: "Get ready. The hidden truth is coming." Listen to this. Mr. Thompson continued, his voice unwavering, now's the time to bring everything into the light. Documents we fought to obtain are finally being revealed. The room fell silent again, the audience leaning in. The volunteers began to pass out printed papers, and Sarah found herself caught up with the crowd, hands reaching out to grab a copy. She could feel the weight of what was about to unfold settle in the pit of her stomach, a mix of dread and a fierce eagerness for justice. As the first volunteer began reading aloud, the atmosphere shifted. All necessary funds for essential resources funneled toward personal projects, a deliberate misallocation prioritizing privilege over our children's needs. Each phrase felt like a punch to the gut as murmurs of disbelief filled the room. Swept up in the emotion, Sarah felt the memories flood back, countless late nights, unanswered calls for assistance, the burdens of financial struggles etched into her life. She looked at Tommy, who listened wide-eyed, and Lily, whose innocent face mirrored the confusion felt across the crowd. This doesn't feel right. Tommy breathed. It isn't. Sarah replied, her voice filled with determination. This is the change we're fighting for. We need to hold them accountable. The crowd erupted in cheers, the energy radiating out like wildfire. Sarah felt emboldened. This was it. The hidden truth was on the cusp of bursting forth, and they were at the forefront of it all. Together, they could dismantle these barriers. In that pivotal moment, Mr. Richards stepped forward again, poised with a look that screamed authority. Let us not forget that. Not all the information is accurate. These claims need scrutiny. His words hung heavy, but instead of stifling the energy, the crowd roared back in protest, growing louder with every repetition of "We deserve better." Feeling the swell of courage infiltrate the room, Sarah stepped up to the forefront, encouraged by the movement all around her. We deserve transparency, she echoed, heart racing. We all deserve to have our voices not just heard, but prioritized. This isn't just about policy, it's about our future. As she spoke, the cheers grew louder, the voices of hundreds cutting through the lingering hesitance. Each affirmation felt like a heartbeat synced into a collective rhythm, binding them as a community. With fire in her heart, Sarah turned to Tommy and Lily. This is what change looks like, kids. This is us, fighting for you. The crowd burst into applause, and the emotions surged rapidly. She felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness, but joy and pride. They were not alone. They would not falter. They were deeply embedded in this fight, her family intertwined with the very fabric of their community. In that instant, Sarah realized the hidden truth wasn't just a set of corrupted documents, it was the power of a unified community fueled by love, hope, and the promise of change. As the meeting continued, with everyone lifting their voices for transparency alongside her, Sarah knew the fight was just beginning. Not just for transparency, but for justice, dignity, and a future rooted in fairness. They would wake up the wisdom beneath silence, rise up together, and transform their home from shadows into light. And as Sarah held tightly to her children, together they stepped fully into their fight. This was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us keep this movement alive.